Thank you for joining us, Commissioner Miller. We'll hop right into the interview. So can you tell us why you're seeking reelection?
Yes, but first I do just want to say, just wanted to describe my district a little bit because it is unique in the sense that I only represent the south and southwest suburbs. So I have no city of Chicago. And as some people might know or might not know, there's 17 commissioners that represent all of Cook County. So me having that distinction of only representing suburban Cook with no city of Chicago, there's only, I think, 3 of us who have that situation. So just to put that into kind of context, but I'm seeking reelection. We have 4-year terms. So this will be my second 4-year term. And seeking reelection really to finish the work I started when I first got into office. I have a background in healthcare, and I could have never have planned for us to be in a pandemic. So being in a pandemic, though, helped me utilize my healthcare background to talk about all of the things that we've been talking about literally every single day for the last 2 years. But not only to talk about it, but to be about it. That's what I like to say. I don't just talk about it, I be about it and make an impact and making a meaningful impact and finding solutions that we're able to do things about. So as we've talked about for the last 2 years, this pandemic has devastated Black and Brown communities disproportionately. And that's where my expertise came into play. So I've been focused on addressing disparities in healthcare throughout my entire career. But this really got to highlight what we want to focus on, what we want to promote. Also, as it relates to the reelection phase of this, we've also been in a lot of social unrest during this period of time. I was able to, focus that unrest and what it means to communities of color within a suburban area, and not just communities of color, because my district is very diverse. I was actually featured on Nightline, and we talked about how diverse communities can come together and address these, ills of society, but the social unrest specifically. So that really helped promote the rich diversity that exists in the South and Southwest suburbs. And what that means is to build a stronger Southland and making it a more viable part of Cook County. So I'm seeking reelection to finish all of that, continue working on it, because none of those problems have been solved and we still have a lot of work to do.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I know you touched on a little bit of it, but what have been a few of your accomplishments during your 4-year term?
I'm really proud of the fact that I've been able to help secure economic investments for the Southland, the South and Southwest suburbs, reduce some of these healthcare disparities, and if not reduce them, amplify them in a sense that we're talking about it so we can find solutions. And I've been able to support businesses that were in small businesses that reside in these communities. Bringing relief for this pandemic, we've been focused on first of all, we had to educate. We didn't even know what pandemic was, right? So that was a huge accomplishment, is educating people. How are we supposed to deal with this? What is a pandemic? And then when we got to the vaccination phase, we had to roll out vaccinations. We had to roll out education on why and how we should get vaccinated. That work hasn't finished. We're still doing that today. I just went to the Cook County stood up a new vaccination site again for the second time in Matteson, which is in my district. So I'm also proud to say that there's program awards that are allocated throughout Cook County, and huge investment in transportation has come across the 6th district, where we were able to secure $25 million across the 6th district for transportation. We are in this area a transportation hub. If anyone has driven on any highway, every one of those highways touches my district, whether it's I-80, 57, 294, 90, 94, all of those go through the 6th district. So that makes us a huge transportation hub in this area. And I played a really instrumental role in something that I love to do in reaching out to the community, and partnering with food drives. And right now, we might have forgotten that there was a time where people weren't going out seniors weren't able to get food. People weren't able to get access to food. We had huge food drives, partnered with churches and local community event organizations for events across the South and Southwest suburbs, and partnered with the USDA to get food out into the community. Again, that's another work in progress because those disparities still exist too, whether we're in a pandemic or not, but it was highlighted during the pandemic. So I'm passionate about the health and wellness of our communities. Many people know that heart disease and cardiovascular disease affects all communities, but Cook County has the #1 deaths due to cardiovascular disease. That's what stands out. And during this pandemic, that was highlighted, still is highlighted. The risk of cardiovascular disease impacts people at a disproportionate rate for COVID-19 and all the variants. So I have been focused since I first got into office prior to the pandemic on CPR awareness. So that people in our communities will know what to do in the event they see someone in distress from a cardiovascular event. And I'd have initiated a countywide CPR training program and to educate people in our communities on how to deliver CPR. And the reason that's super important, especially in Black and Brown communities, is because, again, we have the highest deaths due to cardiovascular disease, but we also have the highest incidence of people not knowing how to do CPR. And the quickest way to help save someone's life is to start doing CPR, #1, and then call 911, which we think everyone would do, but people who are in shock don't necessarily think of things like that because they don't know what to do. So we've been focused on making sure we're getting that education out there. That was actually my first piece of legislation when I first came into office. I continue that every Heart Month, which is in February, so we'll be doing it again in this February. I continue that every February to raise awareness on CPR training. And the other big thing is, many households face financial hardships and still are during this pandemic. And we have had property taxes that are disproportionately burdensome here in the South and Southwest suburbs. I've worked hard to keep people informed on what they can do about that, working with the assessor's office, working with the Board of Review. We've had tons of programs when we could do them in person, and we've also done them virtually now to keep people aware. And I just believe that education, transparency, commitment to making sure all the resources are there in our communities, that's what's going to make us have more cohesive communities and make us more able to take advantage of the programs that are out there. I was also able to pass a property tax relief that let people, here we are again in the pandemic, people were worried how they're going to eat. They probably weren't even thinking about how are they going to pay their property tax bill. So I was able to issue a property tax relief ordinance that allowed payments on the first installment of the 2020 tax bills to be delayed and deferred without penalty. So those are some of the things that I'm really proud of. Again, these are things that don't stop right now and continue to be a work in progress for all of us. And also talking about small businesses, I didn't want to neglect the fact that, so I'm vice chair of contract compliance. And in that role, I've been really consistently helping to raise awareness for minority women-owned businesses and minority-owned businesses to seek out support from Cook County. And so they can be vendors and preferred vendors to work with the county. Again, that goes to transparency, communication, and getting the word out there.
Yeah, you certainly accomplished a lot in your first term. And I know that while we were speaking, you were speaking about things that are still a work in progress and things that you want to continue. So what's one thing that if you were reelected that you would immediately implement?
So I don't say if reelected, I say when I'm reelected. So when I'm reelected, I am going to jump right on top of addressing these healthcare disparities. I started, before COVID. I started in a smaller way before COVID. It expanded now because of COVID. And what's going to happen for the rest of all of our lifetimes is that we are going to see the effects of COVID in ways that we're not going to be able to identify immediately, right? So we need to address the healthcare disparities in our communities, especially in communities of color, and how that's going to impact us long term. So I've already started to think about how can Cook County Department of Public Health, Cook County Health and Hospitals look at some of these disparities in healthcare and get some meaningful outcomes that we can address in a short-term basis. I mean, cardiovascular disease has always been at the top of the list as the highest rated death. We shouldn't just say, oh, well, okay, that's always been there, so it's always been number one. We should be saying, it's always been there. What can we do to decrease it? You know, there are things like CPR, so that's just a small example. How can we prevent someone from dying from a heart attack? Yes, they might have a heart attack, but how can we prevent someone from dying from a heart attack? And little things like that, which is a big thing, learning CPR helps address that. So I'm going to start, when I'm reelected, working on those healthcare disparities, partnering with experts. It is a conversation across every healthcare community in this country. And how can we, as the second largest county in the country, make a viable impact?
So why would you describe yourself as a passionate public servant? Or would you describe yourself as a passionate public servant?
I definitely would describe myself as that. And, you know, that goes to what I say, like when I speak to groups, I've spoken to a lot of groups, Girl Scout groups, education groups, schools. And I always say that if you're passionate about something, it has to come through in your work. Otherwise, your work won't be successful, or you won't be as successful as you could be if you're not passionate about it. So you take something that you're passionate about and work towards making it bigger, expanding the vision of it, doing work around those areas. So yeah, I feel like I am a passionate public servant because I care about the community. I care about what happens in my community, and I want people engaged enough to feel like they can make a difference or help make a difference too.
Then my last question for you is, what would you like your legacy to be?
Well, my legacy, I think, goes to the passion that you talk about, that we just talked about as well. So I want to have stronger economic development, and I'm working towards that. We have things in place to help expand the growth of the South and Southwest suburbs. So I want to make sure that my legacy is kind of benchmarked on that. And I want to make sure that we are establishing something for the next generation. I want people to say, hey, you know, I saw this get started by Commissioner Miller and I want to help, or I want to do something like that, or I want to be the next Commissioner Miller even, you know. I want to have a legacy that's built on something that is outcomes oriented and achievable. So put us on the map in South and Southwest suburbs. So we're on the map. We just need a bigger spot on that map. And I want my legacy to be that I always advocated for the South and Southwest suburbs. I am a passionate, vocal advocate for what happens out here.
Well, thank you for your time and the interview. I'll stop.